As a mindset coach, I oftentimes get asked about habits, positive habits, negative habits, how to form habits, how to break habits. And today I want to share with you the surprising truth about a habit, okay? Why bad habits are so hard to break, and one simple little shift that you can make it easier to form new, more positive and empowering habits. But before I get to that, it's helpful to understand something about the mind. Okay. And so I want to draw your attention to the stickman diagram here to help me illustrate this concept. Okay. Now, the stickman diagram was originally invented by a man named Dr. Thurman Fleet. Now, you don't have to remember that necessarily, but this diagram is meant to represent a couple of things. One, the human mind, and two, more importantly, how thought energy moves through a human being. Now, this is important because thought is a form of energy. And if you remember back a high school science class, all energy operates according to law. Okay. What does that mean? Well, it means that it's very predictable. And once you understand how it operates, you can begin to harness it and use it to your benefit for a specific purpose. It's just like electricity. Okay. Electricity operates in a very predictable manner. And once you understand how to use it, you can harness it and direct it for a specific purpose. Now, thought is no different. Okay. And this diagram is meant to represent how thought energy moves through a human being. Okay. Stick with me here. Okay. It's a lot to take in at first, but I promise this will make more sense as we go. All right. Now, this diagram represents the human mind. And psychology tells us that the human mind consists of two parts. Okay. We have our conscious mind, which is oftentimes referred to as our logical mind or our rational mind. Okay. This is our educated mind. This is the part of our mind that we read books for and go to school for and fill with all kinds of facts and figures, data and information. Okay. But we also have our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is oftentimes referred to as our feeling mind or our emotional mind. Okay. Now, just real basic psychological premise here, okay, something we need to understand is that our thoughts have a tendency to control our emotions. That's why if you've ever had a happy thought, you typically have a corresponding happy emotion. Okay. Alternatively, if you've ever had an angry thought, you probably had an angry emotion as well. Right. Now, our emotions go on to influence the actions that we take, or in some cases, don't take. Okay. And then based on those actions, it produces a specific result in our life. Okay. Can you see that? So it stands to reason that if you want a different result in your life, okay, you really only need to go back to the source and change one thing. And when you change your thoughts, it has this domino effect, okay, that changes your emotional state, that inspires you to take new and different action. And based on those new and different actions, it produces a different result in your life. Okay. It's the law of cause and effect. This formula or this principle works no matter how it's applied. So it's relevant when it comes to your fitness. And I oftentimes use our physical bodies as our fitness as an example because it's something that we can all relate to. Okay. But it also applies with our finances, okay, and our relationships, even our career and so on and so forth. Okay. But the truth is, like, when you change your thoughts, you change your life. And this is why. Okay. The challenge here, though, however, is that there's some debate about how many thoughts the average person has in a day. Okay. But most people would agree that it's somewhere around that 60,000 thoughts per day mark. Okay. Which sounds like a lot, right? Some people watching are probably going to say, wow, my mind, it never turns off. It's always racing. I probably have twice that much. Okay. But, most people, most researchers would agree it's somewhere around that 60,000 thoughts per day mark. Okay which, like I said, sounds like a lot until you realize that most of the thoughts, roughly 95% of the thoughts that you think, are repetitive, meaning the thoughts that you have today are also typically the same thoughts you had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that and the day before that. Now, I want to pause there for a second and just point out the fact that if you think for a second that your life has anything to do with the thoughts that you think, well, then your future is not going to look a whole lot different than present day unless you start thinking different thoughts, right? Now, interestingly enough, most people suffer from what's known as kind of a negativity bias, okay, where the majority of our pattern of thinking or our habit of thought, okay, is typically negative. Thoughts of worry, doubt, stress, frustration, anger, resentment, lack, limitation, so on and so forth. Maybe complaining and criticizing about their circumstances or their situation, or maybe even themselves. Okay. Now, I'm sure it varies a little bit from person to person, but on average, about 80% of our thoughts are typically negative. Okay. And then lastly, the vast majority of the thoughts that we think throughout the day are typically unconscious. And there's a term we use in psychology called metacognition. And metacognition is quite simply this process of becoming more aware of some of our unconscious thought patterns. Okay. And, most people, okay, I'll get there in a second. But the truth is that most people walk around kind of largely on autopilot, just doing our thing throughout the day and never really pay too much attention to the thoughts that they're actually thinking. Okay. So metacognition is a process that we use to start to pay more attention to the thoughts that are going on in here and recognizing how much of a factor they actually play in producing the results we experience in life. Okay. Now, sometimes when I talk with people, they'll say things like, knowledge is power. Okay. And I remember, I had a professor in university that used to say that all the time. And I loved it. I thought it was pretty hardcore. And I kind of wanted to get that printed on a t shirt. Knowledge is power. Sounds pretty badass. But the truth is that there's usually a very big difference between what people know and what people actually do. Am I right? And, here's the thing. I mean, we live in a time and place where we have more access to information, okay, than ever before. With the touch of a button, we can access, an incredible amount of information on the internet and that sort of thing. It's almost information overload, okay? Lack of information is not the problem. It's lack of implementation. And I'll tell you, knowledge alone is not powerful until it's applied. And usually there's, like I said, a big difference between what people know and what people do. And I'll tell you, if there's something that you know that you could be doing, or maybe even should be doing, okay, but it's not showing up in your actions or your behavior or your habits, the truth is the chances are that you have an emotional block. Sorry, a subconscious or an emotional block. Okay. And like I said, this diagram is meant to represent how thought energy moves through a human being, and it goes from the top down and the inside out. And if there's something that you know that you could be doing or should be doing, but it's not showing up consistently in your behavior, it's because there's a block right here. Okay. Now, like I said, a lot of times people will say things like, well, when I know better, I do better, or knowledge is power. But I'll tell you, if you walked up to a person walking down the street that was 400 pounds, okay, and you asked them, I'm looking to lose weight. How would a person go about doing so? They'd probably be able to tell you and give you a laundry list of things that a person could do or should do if they were looking to lose weight. Okay. But one of the most surprising facts that people are usually stunned to hear that's true, okay, is that we're not logical creatures. Okay, there's a very simple reason as to why most people don't act on knowledge that they possess, and that's because we're not logical creatures. And the truth is, we're emotional. and it causes us to act emotionally most of the time. And interestingly enough, most people, okay, they act emotionally based on how they're feeling in the moment. And then what we do is we layer on logic after the fact to justify our behavior and to make ourselves feel better about whatever we decided to do, or in some cases not do. Okay. The truth is, and you can look this up actually, it's kind of surprising, but our conscious, logical thinking mind is really only responsible for a very, very small percentage of what we do. And most scientists would agree that it's somewhere between that 3 to 5% mark. Okay. Which leads me to believe that our subconscious mind is actually responsible for about 95 to 98% of what we do, which is shocking to say the least, but it's also a little bit scary, isn't it? But it's true. I mean, you can look this up, and maybe you're even aware of that or familiar with that statistic. But the fact is that 95% of our behavior is actually controlled by our subconscious emotional mind. Okay. Now, how does this relate to habits and our conversation about habits and habit formation? Okay. Well, quite simply, there's a few different ways. Okay. And sometimes when I have a conversation with clients about habits, I'll ask them, what is a habit anyway? Okay. And the typical response that I get, and if you're sitting there listening to this, you might be thinking, well, a habit is it's an action or a behavior that's repeated, and oftentimes unconsciously, meaning we're not even necessarily aware that we do it until somebody points it out to us, and says, you always do this. Have you ever noticed? Okay, you always chew with your mouth open, or you always chew your nails, or whatever it might be. Okay, and here's the thing: they're not wrong. A habit is absolutely an action or a behavior that's repeated consistently, okay, and oftentimes without our awareness. But I would like to share with you a slightly different interpretation or way of looking at a habit, in the hopes that it helps us to change how we approach habits and give us some tools to better equip ourselves with habit formation. Okay. And I always say that, if you're not consciously creating good habits, chances are you're unconsciously creating bad habits. Now, stick with me here. The definition that I want to provide with you here is that a habit, okay, which shows up oftentimes in our behavior, is the physical manifestation of an unconscious belief. Okay. I'm going to say this again. Okay. A habit is the physical manifestation. So it's the part of our behavior that's observable. It's the physical manifestation of an unconscious belief. Now, what makes me say that? Okay. Quite simply, our beliefs drive our behavior. Okay. And if you have a pen and a paper handy, I would encourage you to take notes and write this down, because this understanding or awareness will fundamentally change your life like night and day. Okay. But our beliefs drive our behavior. And too oftentimes, when people try to make a change to their actions or their behavior or their habits, okay, they focus solely on the behavior itself. And they never think to change the underlying beliefs behind the behavior. For example, if somebody is looking to lose weight or get in shape, okay, well, oftentimes they try to, use willpower or self-discipline, white knuckle it, and force themselves to exercise more or to change their nutrition plan. Okay, start eating healthier, start eating more fruits and vegetables and less sugary sweets, right? But they never think to change the underlying beliefs that drive their behavior. And so you can make short term progress. You can lose weight for a little while. You can get in better shape just by forcing yourself to do it with pure willpower and self discipline alone. But unless you change the unconscious habit part, unless you change your beliefs that drive 95% of our behavior, you will always I repeat, always unconsciously self-sabotage and revert back to old habits, old patterns, and continue to repeat the same old cycles of self-sabotage to ensure that you continue to produce that same old result. Now, a short little example here that I'll share with you to kind of illustrate this, how our beliefs drive our behavior, okay, is that, I mean, I have a lot of top performer, high executive, CEO, C-suite type of clients. Okay. And they'll oftentimes hear stories like, oh, I'm super busy. My crazy busy career has got me running nonstop. I've got a young family. I've got a wife and kids. I've got stress up to my eyeballs. I don't have time to exercise or work out. Right. But then I'll hear the exact same story from somebody else, but it sounds like this. Oh, I've got a crazy busy career. The work hours are nonstop. The stress is to the roof. I got a young family, young kids. I have to work out. Okay. Exact same scenario, exact same situation, completely different belief system, which results in a completely different result. Okay. Exact same situation, entirely different belief system, totally different outcome. On the one hand, the belief is that it takes time and it takes energy. On the other hand, is that, maybe it gives time or gives energy, it gives focus, it relieves stress, it, adds to my mood and my energy, that sort of thing. That belief drives behavior. Okay. But similarly, things like, nutrition is another easy one. People think that, well, it's too expensive to eat healthy. All right. That's one that I hear oftentimes. And the truth is that a belief like that will stop a person from ever being consistent with any sort of a nutrition plan that serves their weight loss or their, energy or performance goals. Okay. A thought like that will hold a person back from maybe even starting. It's so true. But the point that I want to make here, okay, is that every change or transformation that you're looking for, if you expect it to be sustainable in the long run, okay, always comes with a change in your belief system. And if you're solely relying on trying to force yourself to be consistent with the actions or the behavior and never addressing the underlying beliefs that drive that behavior, any success that you're to experience in the short term, okay, will be short lived and not sustainable. All right. I'm recently sober, actually. I'm coming up on 5 years of sobriety, okay, which if you knew me in my teens, 20s, or even early 30s, 5 years of sobriety is a huge accomplishment for myself. Okay. And the reason I share this is because the belief back in the day was that alcohol, okay, it made me more fun. It made me more outgoing. I was more confident. I was funnier. I was better in bed. I was all of these things, all these laundry list of things that we've been led to believe by Hollywood and social media and things like that. The alcohol helped me take off the edge, deal with stress, relax a little bit. Okay. And what I found out down the road now is that in many cases, alcohol wasn't helping me to manage stress and anxiety. In a lot of cases, it was causing my stress and anxiety. And the truth is that I'm actually way more comfortable in my own skin, way more confident, way more outgoing, and have way more fun when I'm sober. And I spend a lot less time overthinking or being insecure and having to apologize for things that, excuse me, I said or did, and some of those late nights and that sort of thing. And, my belief system around alcohol has completely transformed. So when people ask me things like, well, man, you're 5 years sober, that must be so hard. No, it's the easiest thing ever because I'm not relying on discipline or willpower. I don't feel like I'm depriving myself. My belief system has changed, and now I don't have to worry about it. Okay. Now, the truth is that our beliefs drive our behavior. Okay. And when you change the underlying belief, you change the behavior by default. When you change the underlying belief, you change the behavior by default. Okay. Now, I'll share with you two very powerful ways that you can change your subconscious belief system and create lasting, sustainable change in your life. Okay. The first, really, there's only two. The first is what's known as a strong emotional impact. Okay. Now, this could take any form, any number of different shapes, but it's typically some form of hitting rock bottom. Okay. It's a crisis of some sort. Now, the thing with these strong emotional impacts is one, they're usually negative. Okay. Your back's against the wall and now you're in a position where you have to do something. Okay. And two, it's something that's outside of your control. So it's like life, like I said, backing you into that corner and forcing you to make a change. Okay. The second way to go about creating a change in your belief system is through what's called repetition of thought combined with elite level coaching. Repetition of thought, repetition of thought. Okay. So if you found this helpful and you're interested to learn more, or perhaps there's a habit that you're looking to break, or a new habit that you're looking to create, don't hesitate to reach out. I always love to hear from you, and if you're at all interested, let's connect. And I'll share with you many more ideas and concepts here to help you create what's known as a paradigm shift and a change in your belief system, so that you can finally start to live the life that you know that you're capable of deserving. Right on.